All right, good evening to you all and all my colleagues and friends who are currently online and who may see this opportunity to, watch just short live Facebook video podcast. I'm Solomon as usual, and this is what I call um, Saturday special. And during this time, what I do is that I try to address all the questions that have been posed to me, especially the popular request among these queries. So there's a question from a querister, which I am about to address, and the question, centers around First Thessalonians chapter 5, the coming of the Lord as a thief in the night, because they believe that if we hold this position of fulfilled eschatology, then what about the coming of the Lord as a thief in the night? Because he believed that when the Lord comes, it's going to come as a thief, and there wouldn't be any signs to escape. And for that matter, uh, if we proceed from the position that this has been fulfilled, and how did the Lord come as a thief in the night? As Paul and Jesus Christ has have stated. So that is the question that I'm going to address. And as I said, from a querister, I'm not going to mention the name because he uh, preferred to remain anonymous. So I'm not going to mention his name, but I will still have to address the question. The coming of the Lord, excuse me, as a thief in the night. So that is what we are going to look at. Anyway, now that's the deal. You see, if you are well acquainted with what Paul said in the previous chapter, now First Thessalonians chapter, the entire chapter isn't a divided chapter. It's one whole, chapter. It's a one whole book. I think the chapter division came in somewhere 16th century, but one monk. So he introduced the chapter division, and so sometimes we believe that when we jump from one chapter to another, the subject matter changes. The narrative changes and subject matter changes, but that is not the case. It's remained one and the same. So until this division, it was just one book, and so it's the same subject matter, and that is what we're going to look at. Anyway, so if you look at consider, excuse me, if you consider the previous chapter, the Thessalonians have inquired from Christ or from Paul, how would the day of the Lord, the nature of the day of the Lord, and what will happen to those who have fallen asleep through him. What will happen to these people. So they were concerned about uh, their colleagues or brethren who have died, prior to the coming of the Lord. So that should even inform you that they knew the coming of the Lord will be in their time. It's going to occur in their time, at least from First Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 8 to 10, right? I believe to the last verse, Paul had already informed them that the coming of the Lord will occur in their time. So they were conversant with the timing of the coming of the Lord, what they call the parousia or the second coming of Christ. They knew that it was going to come in their time, but as Jesus Christ put it, they did not know the day and the hour, which is why the Thessalonians, were interested knowing from Paul what will happen to those who are fallen asleep prior to the coming of the Lord. So that is the case. But if you now jump to the fourth chapter, Paul, you know, addressed this problem, at the church in Corinth, because similar problem, was raised and Paul addresses it. So let's see what. Oh, 555. Kaki, 779. Yeah, 775. All right, anyway, 775. 7775. All right. So, all right. So now let's go to the fourth chapter. Let's go to the fourth chapter, and I think we are going to have a clue as to how Paul addressed this question concerning the timing and the nature of the coming of the Lord. So when you turn to the chapter 4, Paul addressed this question by quoting from Jesus Christ when he said he's going to come. So in verse 15, Paul said that according to the Lord's word. So it means that whatever Paul is going to say, Paul's day of the Lord is not different from Jesus's day of the Lord. All right. So if you want to understand, or if you want to know when Christ said he was going to come, or the date or the day and hour or whatever the Lord said is going to come, you have to go. you have to visit Jesus's own edit. You have to go to the um, what do they call it? The synoptics. Okay, so if you turn to Matthew chapter 10, I'm not going to read it because normally in the Saturday specials, I don't, want to use much time to to cover what I need to do. No, but if you go to Matthew chapter 10 verse 22, 23, Jesus Christ said that the apostles who were going to be persecuted will not have gone through the cities of old covenant Israel before he comes. So it means that the apostles knew that the Lord was going to come in their time. Now Paul is saying that concerning the day of the Lord, he according to the words of Jesus Christ, so it means that his day of the Lord is not different from what Jesus Christ said will come. And if you look at Matthew chapter 16, verse 27, 28, the Lord said that, there are some standing here which shall not taste that till they see me coming in my kingdom. So we see the correlation between the kingdom and also the coming of the Lord. Paul also has alluded earlier to this in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1, where, we have the correlation between the parousia, the kingdom, the judgment, and the resurrection. All right. So, I wouldn't also want to go there, but again, we also have Paul. We have Jesus again in Matthew chapter 26, verse 64. When he was accused of insurrection, this is what he said. He said that he was subjected to oath because he had failed to, he has failed to respond to the high priest query. So, when he was subjected to, that he said that you have said it. However, from hereafter you see the Son of Man sitting at the right side of the Father and coming with sitting at the right hand side of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. So that means that the first century people knew that indeed the Lord was going to come in their time, and then the reaction of the high priest upon hearing this even confirmed it that indeed he knew the coming of the Lord riding on the clouds of heaven will occur in their time. All right, so Paul, whilst addressing the Thessalonians question, he had appealed to Jesus's words or Jesus's day. So it means that the day of the Lord of Paul is not different from the day of the Lord of Jesus Christ. So that is what I want to do, before we go to the next. All right. So the coming of the Lord, as Jesus Christ has said, will be the time. The second will be the nature of that coming will be like a thief in the night, because when a thief is going to break into your house to take away your properties, he is not going to give you prior notice. I understand some in advanced state, they are going to paste a warning letter there, and they're going to give you a date. Normally they wouldn't come on that day, but at least they will try to kind of like put you on your toes so that you will find means to protect yourself against them. However, with the coming of the Lord, according to the chorister is going to come as a thief in the night. So how did this, relate to or pertains to the coming of the Lord in AD 70? All right. So now let's read the text together so that we can address this question: the coming of the Lord as a thief in the night. Now, in continuation of First Thessalonians chapter 4, then we go to the chapter number 5. So verse 1, it says, "And now, brethren and sisters, brothers and sisters, about the times and dates we do not need to write to you." All right, so that is a continuation of chapter 4. Okay, now verse 4, for you, that is the Thessalonians, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly, as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you brothers and sisters are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief in the night. So you see the difference between the two. The difference had to do with the audience. The brethren who are in Christ, the day of the Lord will not come upon them as a thief in the night, but unbelievers, it will come to them as a thief in the night. The difference is that if you tend to, now there's also element of labor pains, or what we call the birth pangs. Okay, if you turn to Matthew chapter 24, the coming of the Lord, in connection with the destruction of Jerusalem, you realize that the you realize that so many signs were given. No, Jesus Christ, whilst he was on earth, in his humanity, his incarnated nature, while he was on earth, he did not know the day and hour. But that does not mean that he wouldn't know the day and hour when he is taken up. But while he was here, remember he told his apostle that there are a lot of things that I wish to, tell you, but you cannot, contain them all at the moment. But when I go, I'm going to send a helper who he will tell you everything. He will bring everything to memory or remembrance, and he will tell you what is to come. So it means that there were some things that Jesus Christ, did not tell them. However, in his absence, the Holy Spirit will be poured upon the apostles, and the Holy Spirit will enable them and to bring and to tell them what is to come. Okay, so at least the Holy Spirit, being the Spirit of the Lord, knew all these things, knew the day and the hour. But Jesus Christ did not know whilst he was here on earth. Now, however, not knowing this, the apostles asked him concerning the sign of his coming. Okay, he said, I don't know the day and the hour. However, I'm going to give you some signs, okay, that will point to you the imminency of my coming. So in Matthew chapter 24, he gave so many signs. And one of the signs is the birth pangs. That is Matthew chapter 24, verse 8, the beginning of sorrow or birth pangs. Now, this is what happens when a woman is in labor. He knew that one day he's going to give birth, but he doesn't know the exact day and hour of her deliverance. You understand? Because if you are, well acquainted with some of this midwifery, stuff, you realize that, there are some signs that, you know, inform the woman that she's about to deliver and that she has to run to a midwife, for assistance. Okay. So the incremental pain upon the apostles, the tribulation that they were going to go through was a sign of the imminent coming of the Lord to deliver them from the hands of these, persecutors. All right. So the birth pang in Matthew chapter 24, verse 8 was one of the signs of the coming of the Lord. They know that the Lord is going to come in their time. However, they do not know the day and the hour. But when the pains increases, when the tribulation, the affliction that was, rain upon them by the unbelievers, keeps augmenting, then that will point to the imminent coming of the Lord. And the purpose of the coming of the Lord was to rescue them, or is to rescue them from this tribulation by destroying those who destroy them and to grant them peace as the Lord is going to dwell with them in the tabernacle or in the kingdom. Because the eventual destination of the Lord when he comes will be the time when he sits upon his throne in the kingdom. Matthew chapter 25, verse 31. And that is going to also occur in the first century, before the first century people have all died. We have that in Matthew chapter 16, verse 27, 28. Sorry. Uh-huh. Okay. Maybe I have to sit here. Okay. I have to relocate. This is coconut, so fresh coconut. Anyway, it's interesting, sitting outdoor. Normally, during the special Sunday, the Sunday special, I usually wish to do a record audio, make audio, recording. But yeah, I am sitting under a coconut tree, enjoying some fresh air and, continue. All right, so continue with what I was saying. The coming of the Lord will be the time when he comes in his kingdom, and it will be the time when the old first century, audience were alive. All right, so that is the case. So the Lord has given them, a lot of, signs, and as I said, one of the signs was the beginning of sorrow, what they call the birth pang or birth pain. So you realize that Paul answered the Thessalonians, question concerning the nature of the coming of the Lord, and in answering this, Paul quoted Jesus Christ. Okay, so it means that, and that includes among many things the birth pang. So when you see birth pang in Matthew chapter 24, it's the same birth pang of First Thessalonians chapter number 4, chapter number 5, and the verses 2 or 3. And this is because Paul is not saying anything different apart from that which Jesus Christ said will come. Remember when he was delivering the Lord's Supper, the Holy Eucharist to the Corinthians. He told them that for me, I only received from the Lord what I also delivered to you. So it means that whatever he did, at some point in time, he said that they should imitate him just as he also imitated Jesus Christ. So it means that there is semblance and there is equality, in terms of what Paul said, especially concerning the day of the Lord. And so is the case. So one of the signs to the believers was the birth pangs, and you go on and on and on. We also have the another thing was the was the abomination of desolation, which Daniel has spoken about. That was also one of the signs when he says that when you see the abomination of the sign of the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place, know that the day of the Lord has drawn near, or the destruction upon Israel has drawn near. This is because Jesus Christ did not give them the exact day and hour, and it would have been cruel on part of Jesus Christ knowing the day and not informing them in advance. But not knowing it, he had given them enough signs to watch out for, the signs of the end, so that when they see this thing occurring, they can be on their guard and they can escape the judgment that befell Jerusalem in AD 70. All right, so that was the case. So he gave them, among other signs, that when you see the abomination of desolation, speaking of by Daniel, so that is Daniel chapter 9. Another sign, uh, another sign was the promulgation of the gospel throughout the world in the first century. That is Matthew chapter 24, verse 14. And Paul confirmed it. No, Paul was living in the end. These were the signs of the end, and Paul was living in the end. First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11. Paul was living in the end. So at least he said that one of the conditions for the coming of the Lord will be the time when the gospel has been preached to the then known world. That is the world in the first century. And if you read Romans chapter 1, verse 5 and verse 8, Colossians chapter 1, verse 5 and 6, and Colossians 1:23, another one in Second Thessalonians chapter 1, I believe, verse 7 through to 8, and then Romans chapter number 10, verse 18, and so on and so forth, all confirm that indeed the word was preached to the then known world. So we cannot have the end, you cannot have the condition met. You cannot have the condition met, okay, and delay the parousia, because these signs were to yield the parousia. So if these signs were met in the first century, indeed, then it means that you cannot postpone also you cannot postpone the parousia. All right, so that was also met. And another one was the fleeing event in verse 16. It said that when this desolation is standing in the holy place, those who are on rooftop, those who are on the field, they should not return to the house, and so on and so forth. So this fleeing event, all these things were signs that were given to them to flee. However, those signs of the end of the coming of the Lord was exclusive to the believers in the first century, but it was kind of like unaware. Okay, it wasn't well known by it wasn't known by the unbelievers. Okay, so what was the purpose of the signs? It was to inform them about the imminent judgment upon Israel. Okay, so they knew the signs. That is why they were told to flee when they see these things occurring. But what about the unbelievers? So that the day of the Lord occurred upon them, or dawned upon them as a thief in the night. They were not aware that the thief was going to come. So they were there when the Roman invaded it and destroyed them and enslaved many of them. You understand? So to them, um, like a thief, coming to steal their properties. Okay, but the believer, they had already fled to Mount Pella, long before, the Roman army invaded Israel, which overthrew their temple and the city. So the coming of the Lord was like a thief to them, but to the believers it wasn't. So if you listen to Paul's word, Paul, if you listen to what Paul said again in First Thessalonians chapter 5, he said that uh now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates we do not need to write to you. Okay, so they were still inquiring, what will be the date, what will be the time of the coming of the Lord. And Paul said that they do not need to, he doesn't need to write to them anything, because in verse 2 said that for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. So they were in the known, concerning the coming of the Lord. They were in the known that that day will come upon them as a thief in the night. This is because they will come it will come like a thief in the night, not against them, but to the unbeliever. This is because of the signs of the end that they have they have given. Now, when you turn to the second epistle, Second Thessalonians, you remember Paul gave two conditions. Okay, Paul gave two conditions of the coming of the Lord. One of them was apostasy. Paul said that apostasy, was going to take place, and the revelation and the destruction of the man of sin who sit in the most holy place, okay, proclaiming equality with God. So he had already given them the signs, and they knew the signs of the end. So there's no need for him to tell them or give them specific dates and specific time of the uh of the day of the Lord, because it's going to come like a thief in the night. So how is he going to give them that date? All right, but he has given them ample signs to look out for or to watch out for, and that is going to help them to escape the judgment that was about to come upon them. That is what we are talking about. And so, as I said in Second Thessalonians, again, one of the hey, Abadini, and so, as I said, the man of sin was the one who was sitting in Jerusalem temple. That is the most holy place. He was there. And also the apostasy, was already running its course also in the first century. In Matthew chapter 24, I believe verse 10 to 12, Paul said, Jesus also said that there's going to be apostasy. He called it hoi paloa, the many. So the many are going to abandon the faith. They are going to leave the faith, okay, and to join, other faiths as well, because there was this uh, uh, unbelievers, people who were also, running their course, who were also running shoulder to shoulder with the apostles. They were also with their own doctrine. Remember, Second Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13 through 14, 15, Paul said that for such are false apostles. So it means that there were false apostles who were also peddling around with false, teachings and so on and so forth. So that was that. That was it. So Paul has given them, enough evidence or enough signs to watch out for, which will occasion the parousia, and that is what we are talking about. But these signs were unknown to the unbelievers. So to them, the day of the Lord came upon them as a thief in the night. So that, of course, is also spoken in the context of the fall of Jerusalem. As I said, Paul's day of the Lord is Jesus's day of the Lord. So the sign that Paul gave, okay, the apostasy, Jesus has also given the apostasy, the coming of the Lord as a thief. Paul has also quoted Jesus. All right, so it's the same coming of the Lord, which coming of the Lord in Matthew chapter 4, which is also the coming of the Lord in First Thessalonians. If you study First Thessalonians chapter 4, the coming of the Lord with the angel, the trumpet, and so on and so forth. These are the elements of Matthew chapter 24, verse 29 to 31. So it's the same coming of the Lord, and it's the same AD 70 coming of the Lord. So that is what it means to say that, for we know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. You see, while people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly. That is the same thiefly language as labor pains, which I have explained on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. Now, listen to verse 4. But you, brethren, so now he's addressing the brethren, the brothers and sisters. But you, brothers and sisters, are not in the dark, so that those days should surprise you like a thief. All right, so because they were in the light of the gospel, they were often admonished not to abandon uh, meetings, as they see the day coming, that is the day of the Lord coming. As they see the day of the Lord coming, we read that in Hebrew chapter 10, verse 25. So they were not to abandon assembly, because they will look out for, they will compare what they've seen, so that they will make preparation to flee. We also have another one. We also have like all these things where the apostles knew the signs of the end. So the apostles and the church, the saints, they knew this, the day of the Lord. They knew the signs. They have the signs. So to them, it wasn't going to surprise them, because they were in the light. They were not in the darkness. They were not in that sinful world. Paul's present evil age in Galatians 1 verse 4. So they knew all these things, and to them it did not come upon them as a surprise. Excuse me, and not as a thief in the night. So the querist, I believe that I have dealt with your question, and so I'll be waiting for your response, if any, or if there's a need for further dialogue. We are going to engage, and I believe we will come to one compromise and understanding and so on and so forth. All right, so I'm Solomon, and this is Sunday. Saturday special. So we are going to meet again on the flip side. Bye.